Scaramucci, thanks for coming on the show. As we just heard, I don't know if you heard as well, Donald Trump was very quick to respond to this, to say, you know, to distance himself from Steve Bannon and the arrest. Do you think it has any impact on him and his campaign to be re-elected?
Well, I'm not sure about the impact on the campaign, but I think that the problem that the president has, as your journalist is pointing out, there's a web of deceit around the president. And so we learned this week from the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is a GOP-controlled committee, that the president lied about the conversations that he had with Roger Stone related to WikiLeaks. And so there's problems there. And if President Trump can't be a character witness for Steve Bannon may be an anti-character witness for President Trump as he's going through this personal crisis and this arrest. And so, of course, in our system, like in your system, people are innocent until proven guilty. But the facts, as at least have been portrayed by the U.S. attorney, are not favorable to Mr. Bannon. So could it impact the president? Absolutely. You know, we know that the walls are sort of closing in on the president. You saw the court's decision related to his tax returns. We know that the president doesn't want those tax returns out, and we don't know the exact reason, but it can't be a good one.
And of course, Steve Bannon is pleading not guilty. I mean, he's been out of the fold for a long time. Is he even remotely relevant politically in America right now?
Remotely, yes. I mean, he was doing podcasts and he was preaching his white nationalist, populist agenda. And he definitely has his coterie of acolytes. And he had a falling out with the president. The president gave him a notorious nickname. He then tried to get back in the good graces of the president. He's trying to do that with his podcast. So, yes, he has a minor amount of influence. You probably know this. He was scheduled to speak at the Republican National Convention next week. He's still on that schedule. I would suspect that they're probably going to take him off the schedule. But you know, Steve Bannon is an interesting, charismatic voice. Obviously, you know, I've spoken out against him. I dislike his former politics. I dislike the way he handles the populist agenda.
And yet it worked very well, didn't it? I mean, that Build the Wall signature pledge was apparently so important last time round. Do you think Donald Trump has actually lost a similar connection, you know, a campaign pledge, something that will connect him to voters now that he doesn't have Bannon with him? Has he lost his connection to the population?
Well, if you analyze the president's base, the bad news with the president is the base is shrinking. You can just look at the poll numbers in Wisconsin and places like Michigan and even Texas, where that quote unquote wall is supposed to go in. It looks fairly even with the vice president. That's not to say that this is not going to be a close election. But I think people have grown weary of the false promises, and they've grown weary of an agenda that the president promised that he never delivered on. Concomitant to that, he's mishandled the healthcare crisis, and he's also a racial bomb thrower. If you look at the president's tweeting about lower income housing in the suburbs as an example, he's trying to divide the country. So I think the smarter people in the country recognize that that's very dangerous. It's very hard to win moderates and independents with that strategy. And so losing Steve Bannon as an acolyte is important because the president's last strategy on his Venn diagram was to bring out the most vociferous part of his base and try to increase that voter participation. And so he needs carnival barking like Steve's carnival barking to get those people out.
But
and I think he's lost that voice now.
Sorry to interrupt. He is going for a sort of different kind of disruption. He's out on the campaign trail. He's in Biden's home state while the Democrats are holding their convention via, you know, the internet. You know, is that kind of disruption going to work for him in 2020? For apparently appearing more the challenger than the incumbent. What do you make of that?
I don't think it's going to work. I mean, anything can happen. The president's a resilient guy, so I'm not writing him off. But I don't think it's going to work because he won the election very narrowly last time. The president needed to expand his base, expand the people, open his tent more. He's in fact closed the tent, and he's disenfranchised a ton of people. And if you look objectively at the record, in addition to threatening the institutions of our democracy, he's hurt us as it relates to our COVID-19 response in that crisis, and it's also crippled the economy. And so I don't think it's going to work. I get the strategy. The president's very clever in his communication strategy. He knows how to deflect attention away from the things that are really bothersome, like the criminal activity of his support system and so forth. And I get all of that. But you remember, he only won this election by 100-ish thousand votes last time in certain swing states. And if you look at the data's not with him this time. And that data is more refined and more accurate today in 2020 than it was in 2016.
Anthony Scaramucci, thank you so much for
Good to be
joining
here. Thank
us. Now, the Prime Minister said they could be a game changer.